I believed God, even when my life was falling apart. There was a time when I felt completely alone. The world around me was moving forward, but I was stuck in a place filled with pain, fear, and unanswered questions. Every night, I looked at the sky and whispered, God, are you really listening to me? Do you really know my struggles? I had lost many things in my life. The people I trusted walked away, my dreams started breaking, and my heart became tired from fighting every single day. But deep inside my heart, there was a small voice that said, don't give up. God is still working on your story. One cold night, while sitting alone in a dark room, I opened an old Bible that my mother had given me years ago. My hands were shaking, and tears were falling from my eyes. I read the words, when you walk through difficult times, I will be with you. You are never alone. At that moment, something changed inside me. I realized that God was not ignoring my prayers. He was preparing me for something greater. The next morning, I decided to believe again. I prayed with all my heart and said, God, I don't understand your plan, but I trust you. Please guide me. Days passed, and slowly things started changing. The problems did not disappear overnight, but my heart became stronger. I found peace in the middle of my struggles. Then one day, something happened that I never expected. The same door that I thought was closed forever suddenly opened. I understood that God had been working silently behind the scenes all along. Because sometimes God doesn't remove the storm immediately. Sometimes He gives you the strength to walk through it. And that day I learned. I believed God, and God never left me. I believed God when everyone lost hope. Part 2. After that day, my faith started growing stronger. I began to understand that every difficult moment in my life had a purpose. But life was still not easy. A few weeks later, another storm came into my life. The opportunity that I had prayed for disappeared suddenly. The people who promised to help me changed their minds. Once again, I found myself sitting alone, feeling broken. I looked up and said, God, I trusted you. So why is this happening again? My eyes filled with tears. I felt like my prayers were reaching nowhere. That night, I walked outside under the quiet sky. The streets were empty, and the cold wind was blowing. I sat on a bench and closed my eyes. Then I remembered something. God never promised that life would have no problems. He promised that He would never leave us alone in those problems. I took a deep breath and prayed, Lord Jesus, even when I cannot see the way, I choose to trust you. At that exact moment, an elderly man passing by noticed me sitting there. He stopped and asked, Son, why are you carrying so much sadness in your eyes? I stayed silent for a moment and then told him everything. The old man smiled and said, sometimes God allows us to lose something because He is making space for something better. Don't judge God's plan by one painful chapter. Those words touched my heart. The next morning, I woke up with a different feeling. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing. I was not walking alone. Every day, I started praying, working hard, and believing that God had a purpose for my life. Months passed. Then one unexpected day, I received a message that changed everything. The same dream I thought was impossible came back to me. A door opened that I never imagined would open. I looked at the sky with tears in my eyes and whispered, Jesus, you were working when I thought you were silent. I finally understood that delays are not always denials. Sometimes God makes. I believed God when everyone lost hope. Part 3. After that miracle, my faith became stronger than ever. I started seeing life differently. I understood that God was not only present in my happy moments. He was also standing beside me during my darkest nights. But I didn't know that my biggest test was still waiting for me. One evening, I received a phone call that shook my entire world. Someone very close to me was going through a serious struggle, and there was nothing I could do to fix it. I felt helpless. I went into my room, closed the door, and fell on my knees. With tears in my eyes, I prayed, Lord Jesus, I have trusted you before. I am trusting you again. Please bring hope where there is pain. Bring light where there is darkness. For many days, I prayed, but nothing seemed to change. Doubt started entering my heart. I whispered, God, why are you silent? Why aren't you answering my prayers? Then one night, while reading the Bible, I felt a peace inside my heart. It was like a gentle reminder from God saying, "My child, silence does not mean I am absent. I am working even when you cannot see." Those words gave me strength. The next morning, I decided not to give up. I started praying with more faith, not because I could see the solution, but because I trusted the one who had the solution. Days turned into weeks. Then something unexpected happened. A person came into our lives with the exact help we needed. A situation that looked impossible slowly began to change. I stood there with tears running down my face, realizing something powerful. God had already started the miracle before I even saw it. I looked at the sky and said, "Jesus, forgive me for doubting you. You were never late. You were always working behind the scenes." That day, I learned a lesson I would never forget. Sometimes God doesn't answer immediately because he is preparing something greater. Sometimes he removes people from our lives because he is protecting us. Sometimes he closes a door. I believe God when everyone lost hope. Part 4, final part. Time passed, and my life slowly started changing. The pain that once broke me became the story that gave me strength. I look back at my past and realize something important. Every tear I cried was seen by God. Every silent prayer was heard by Jesus. Every moment I thought I was alone, God was right beside me. But one day, another challenge came. I met a young man who was completely broken. His eyes were full of sadness, and his heart was filled with hopelessness. He said to me, "I prayed to God, but nothing changed. Maybe God has forgotten me." I looked at him and remembered my own painful days. I smiled and told him, "Brother, I once felt the same way. I thought God was far away because my problems were not disappearing. But later I learned that God was carrying me through every storm." I told him, "Sometimes we only see the pain of today, but God sees the blessing of tomorrow." The young man started crying. He asked, "But how can I believe again?" I said, "Start with one small prayer. Tell Jesus your fears, your pain, and your dreams. He doesn't need perfect words. He only needs a sincere heart." That night, he prayed again, and slowly his life began to change. Not because every problem disappeared instantly, but because his heart found hope again. Years later, I realized that God had not only changed my life, he had used my story to bring hope to others. I finally understood why I had to go through those difficult seasons. My pain had a purpose. My waiting had a purpose. My story had a purpose. I looked toward the sky and whispered, "Jesus, thank you for staying with me when I had nothing left. Thank you for giving me strength when I was weak. Thank you for turning my broken pieces into something beautiful." And I heard the message that every tired heart needs to remember. My child, I never left you. When you cried, I was there. When you felt lost, I guided you. When you thought the journey was over,